just because you wrote a design document that you're happy with. Who even writes design documents anymore, right? You gotta fucking dig in there. So, I mean, do you think that crunch is a result of bad management? When you hear that, what is your response?
I think it's true. I mean, there's a number of reasons why. I mean, in the game industry, tech pipelines are terrible. Even great engines like Unreal, there's just a lot of work and a lot of overhead and a lot of proprietary decisions that get made by developers and their engines and their workflow, and they're not optimal. So I think that it's just we talk a lot about tech debt. I do believe there's art debt, there's design debt as a result of these things as well. So I think it's management decisions. It's the pipeline, the unpredictable nature of the pipeline. It's funny that tech is unpredictable, but it totally is. But then also, I think that iteration leads to crunch. I mean, if you care and you want to do the best thing possible, it's the deal saying all writing is rewriting. The exact same thing applies. I'll say something on a front.
Oh.
This is the best design I've ever done in my life. Oh my god. They should rate me $1 billion. Right? And I'll go wrong and then come back on Monday and look at it and say, oh my god, I'm literally the worst designer on the planet. I'm shocked I'm still employed. So I just think kind of having that voice where you're always evaluating your work and kind of looking at stuff and being willing to throw it out and be comfortable doing that.
And when you put it in front of people that play it for the first time, let me ask you this real quick. Sony blew my mind. I don't know if they did this with your game. With Twisted Metal 2012, there's this company, EDAR, EEADAR. Okay. And they're like, okay, we got to send a copy to EDAR. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, then tell us what the review score will be. I'm like, we're 4 months from completion. How will they know that? Is it like Minority Report? And they're like, no, they hire journalists that do reviews, and they're pretty spot on. And lo and behold, I think we're sitting at like a 75, 76 for that game. Lo and behold, the EDAR score came back like a 75. So, wow, that was impressive, right? When you guys were voting, whether it was individuals coming in or EDAR, if in EDAR didn't like it, were they close, or were you guys surprised when the actual numbers came in from real critics that they didn't align with the focus test of EDAR, or if it was what you thought it would be?
So, we did it. But it was some sort of agency that specialized in some more things where they write a mock review, I think, or something like that. And typically, games do at least one of these. We did 3, and they all came back great, good, terrible. So I think that they were accurate collectively. Okay. And that's kind of the response that we had. But as far as them nailing the score, no, it was. I think one of them nailed the score, but the other 2 didn't. And it was fascinating because I was like, how can you guarantee within 3 points that your things could be perfect? But lo and behold, in general, it's a good process, and one of them got close, so that makes me a believer in that. But we totally did it. Probably 6 months out. We started about 6 months before it was done.
Right. Okay. Because I know that a lot of times they use that to determine marketing budget, and it's like, hey, this is going to go really big. So this is okay. So you're talking about new, because this is what a lot of people want to know, and I want to know it too. I haven't been inside at Sony for a very long time. We shut Bartlett Jones down 3 years ago now. And I always enjoyed my time at Sony. I think Scott Rohde's a fucking genius. I honestly think Scott Rohde should be in Jim Ryan's job, but whatever. So I mean, I don't dislike Jim Ryan. I don't know him, but I just know that Scott and Connie, both those guys, are just sort of like the track record is unassailable. It's insanely impressive, right? But the question becomes, though, a lot of people are looking at Sony right now, and I'm not saying you're confirming it, but it doesn't not track. The idea of more cooks in the kitchen. You came up when I came up. I was there a little bit before you, but you see what's happening in Japan with all of these Sony folks that have been responsible in so many ways for the foundation of the creative DNA of the company. You see Shuhei, who really, in some ways, not always, but in some ways, is the heartbeat of that era. You see what's happening with Ben, and you're going, is it an accurate read that, and I always say if I was a Jim Ryan Jr., maybe I would do the same thing. When you're dealing with these budgets, you can't be as hey, let's be hippie to people as the early PlayStation days. But at the same time, there is a sense that Sony, or there's a narrative that PlayStation is sort of losing what made them so appealing to so many gamers. Yes, they're big budget, and yes, they're great production value, but there's also losing that, unless you're Neil Druckmann, and I don't know Neil, but he seems like a great guy, a nice guy, and his games are great, and his games sell great, but unless you're Neil, that we're in the Neil Druckmann business. Is that terrible to say? Is that accurate? Or is that like, dude, that's not my experience? I mean, I'd love to get your take on that, because it does seem that the fans are worried. And it doesn't really matter because fans are vocal, but end of the day, if Sony's selling hardware and software and gamers are happy, it's a tempest in a teacup. But it's still, I'm curious what your take is on that narrative.
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, these quadruple A games, I mean, they're just expensive from the get-go, and they're not getting cheaper. There's so much competition for outsourcers these days, especially, that even that's not cheap anymore.
Right.
So, like I said, with Sony's got to run a responsible business, so it's only for them to make decisions based on anticipated return on investment, because that's the money they need to fund. Because that's the money they need to fund the next one. So it's it's naive to think that it's all hippie, kumbaya, goodwill, kind of like we're sitting around the right thing as opposed to the best thing for the company and the fans. It's a tension that they're going to have to kind of maintain. And yeah, like a lot of the small games that generate a lot of the goodwill and love of the brand. I have no idea about the status of those or what's happening, but when you're making a game like this, Sony is still pretty hands-off. Even 4 Days Gone.
I'm busy, go. Close the door, I'm streaming.
They're like, well, what do you guys want to do? So, I think that's everything as a developer. If they can only run so many of these now, I think it's understandable. Unfortunately for Sony, they've made their name in the last 10 years based on these basically super polished, really emotionally engrossing single-player games, and they still really well, and they make a ton of money. But they don't bring in the Fortnite money. They bring in the renewables, and they be careful. I think it's for Sony, for every era it's cost or not. Because they're never going to capture it. So they've got to be smart. I don't think that. I think fans should understand that before they really kind of go off there. Fans are going to fan, and that's what they do. That's what they're great.
Well, I mean, they are, but I almost wonder. One of the things I tell them is like, every now and then you'll have, and I know he was an asshole. You'll have like a Steve Jobs who's able to not only deliver for the fan base, but also make a shit ton of money, which is sort of the holy grail. But more often than not, the bigger you get, the more you have to kind of shed the skin that got you so big, and you just hope that you can pivot into a new thing that people still love, because I don't think Sony's necessarily, going away, but I think it's fair to say you're probably going to see lesser games from Sony first party because they cost so much and they take so long. And I'm not saying not you guys, but Sony's not making smaller games. I know they're still making some small games, but it's not like you were saying. It's not like it was when you're like, hey, let's make Siphon Filter, or let's try, or I was like, hey, let's try Drawn to Death. Sure, here's $10 million, see what you come up with. Go nuts. I mean, it was never that easy, but it was kind of that easy, right? I mean, the greenlight process wasn't what it is now out of just it didn't have to be. So, I mean, maybe what you tell the fans, or what I've told the fans is, it's like any relationship has a shelf life, right? It may be that Sony can't be for you what it was for you, because what it was for you was, A, it's nostalgia, but it also, it was a different time, and there are companies out there that are, much more nimble, and that are sort of doing things that are more off-book and crazy, And maybe that's where these fans need to start looking, because I don't look at Apple anymore. I don't turn on the Apple press conference anymore like I did when Jobs was alive. And it's like, here's an iPad, here's an iPhone, here's the new MacBook. I'm like, whoa. Now it's like, whatever. Now I'm like, what's Elon Musk doing, right? I mean, maybe it's just a natural part of a company becoming dog in the fight. I don't know. I mean, do you miss those days, or do you think, like, are you happy to continue? Are you happy as a creator where the industry's going at the AAA, quadruple A level?
Again, I think Sony is a different. It's in a bubble that I don't know how it is for other AAA developers, but Sony, despite their conservatism of late, they're still very supportive and hands off too. So it's like that's interesting, because that's basically what we all assume places like EA or Activision, they're letting spreadsheets drive these decisions, and that's never been the case in Sony. It's in my experience, and so I think that type of AAA pressure, although we're all smart and we stand up, got to create something commercial, they're not like jamming that down our throat. But in general, it's risky, and the indie film equivalent really doesn't exist. Yes, we got Unity and Unreal. They're great, kind of, they level the playing field for people. But the indie films can almost seem whatever maybe not summer blockbuster level of special effects, but they can be large, emotionally satisfying experiences for the same amount of money. And it's tougher for indies to kind of create something equivalent. There's a lot of awesome success stories out there, but those are the guys who get to take the risks. They can take more risks. Sony still does take risks and is pretty hands off. So I think that's that's really refreshing. And the thing that I miss about if I'm ever going to miss anything about Sony, it's going to be that. It's going to be one of many things. But I think that pressure is something that's believable. I've got a business degree, so I understand a lot of this stuff in general. But it's just something where games are expensive, movies are expensive. We got to in order to make more movies, more games. The initial ones have to make money, and I do think the more overthink something, the more kind of destined you are to kind of do it and kind of make it fail. So that's why I like the loose format of Sony. Even in the Schreier report, he talks about I think they still trust the developers.
Even though then they brought in all these people that you wanted to strip footage.
But that was local. That was a local issue. And again, it's one of those things where we just needed to kind of add this layer of kind of post-dive, just another discipline that's still a job that's looking for deadlines and help us. And it's not really on them. It was something where I was doing that already, and it was something where I no longer do what I needed to do. Like all the levers of control that I had were in other hands, and it was foreign for me. And there's been so much great I could do on games, like start putting it in motion and making it, and it just wasn't a sexy proposition.
Okay, yeah, understood. What do you think of Jim Ryan and Herman Hulst in terms of, like, compared to Sean Layden, compared to Shuhei? Or do you feel, especially a guy who's a business degree is up against? I don't think Sony's ever had this kind of competition before, and I've been with them since before PlayStation 1 was a thing. When you look at competition from Xbox, which I think is stronger than it's ever been, when you look at competition from Nintendo, which is insanely strong right now on the Switch, and then, like you said, like Fortnite, Among Us, all of these sort of tablet PC games that really, I don't know if you have kids, but the younger generation really, they're not playing a lot of console games. They're playing those games on their tablets and PCs. If you look at Jim Ryan and Herman and go, yeah, I mean, that's what any smart executive would do. Or do you think the narrative amongst fans, and it's amongst fans, right?
Say goodnight.
And then, like you said, that the fans are going to fan. But is it a valid concern that they don't really, that they're running too far to the conservative, direction to the point that they're going to hurt the Sony PlayStation brand? Or do you think that's just fear, and once they see the games, they'll be fine? Like, what's your take on that?
I think it's fear. I haven't met Jim Ryan. I met Herman once. Didn't really get a chance to talk to him too deeply, but I watched him give presentations, and Herman, I think, is probably. I'm just going to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, and from everything I've heard and seen, is that he's a great leader, a great manager, kind of like a Zen master. He's just got the ability to kind of move people in very intelligent ways. And so I think that's great. I think don't know anything about Jim Ryan. Oh no, I did meet Jim Ryan once when we did a demo in London for his group. But basically, before we played it, I was sitting in the audience because I was playing, and I'm next to all these marketing execs, and Jim threatened to fire every single one of them if they leaked the fucking thing. They're like, if any of you motherfuckers leak this, I guess would have been up to fire your ass. So my one contact with Jim Ryan, I'm like, that guy's awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
That's amazing. That's great. Okay. Yeah, and so he's been with Sony for a very long time. So I think people think he's a suit. I think he's much more game savvy than you think. I don't know if he's a gamer. Sean Layden was a gamer. I know Sean Layden well. I know Scott Rohde. Spent a lot of time with them and those guys, especially Scott.
Scott, yeah, they're hardcore.
Yeah, those guys just they nerd out on games and there's real passion there for that. I think Sean probably was too busy to truly stay up to date. But I met him like 2003 or 2002 for the first time, and he was just cool. I mean, he's just a guy who was insightful and kind of level-headed, and could just kind of say. He can tear apart your argument with one statement and make you understand, this is a bit of wisdom. Take with me very forward. Thank you so much, Sean. And Sean, to me, especially now, he always seemed like this is going to sound weird to people, but Orson Welles, young Orson Welles.
I'll take this as a start. Perhaps you'll survive Macros's madness after all.
Come, we have much to discuss.
Are we going into a sanctum? Oh, Orin. So this is the inside of a sanctum.
She's quite something. Though I did not expect her to be so independent.
She's a living being, Orin. Not merely some weapon to be wielded.
Well, in that case, I'll have to look to you for the weapons.
You never change. I'll provide you with basic arms. The rest we can forge. Here, this will help.
A sacred flame.
Go on. Light the forge.
Literally a sacred flame. That's the same thing as God of War. Oh my gosh. Yo, you can't make this up. Yo, a sacred flame. I think was it called a? I think it was called a frozen flame. And God of War, like literally, it's the same thing as God of War. Now I'm starting to see what people are talking about. I mean, it's still a great game. God of War was an excellent game, and this is a really great game so far. But damn, now I see what some of the reviewers are talking about. How it's similar. Life stones. Alright, it's time to upgrade. Let's see what we got. A banner, right? Yep, we just unlocked the banner. Now we got a banner. This is Mark of the Duelist. Wow, I bought this for nothing. What's this? Apply the mark of weakness whenever you hit an enemy with a weapon technique. 19 plus. Dang. Yeah, this is nice. This one's nice. Oh, what we got here? Let me see. What's this? None of these are really bad, to be honest. Ooh, this one's even better. Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready for this smoke. Ooh. You can change your characters right here. I'm gonna stick with this chick for now. I'm gonna try to beat this game quickly. I'm gonna stick for her for now, and then I'll change character.
You'll be able to upgrade your equipment once we get the right materials.
So if you have like Furium, then you can upgrade them. So you can upgrade it to 40. Alright, let's try this out, y'all. To upgrade it again. So you can only do it 5 times. Okay. Why not? This is the strongest weapon I'm probably gonna have for a little while. That one. I want to increase the bleeding to an enemy. Dragon Steel. Huh. So that'd be the next upgrade. Damn, this game is pretty cool. Dragon Steel. And then you have Incarnate Essence. So I just gotta find some Dragon Steel. And this is upgraded already 3 times. So this is pretty powerful. This is my secondary weapon. Ooh, you can salvage things too. Let's go. Hold on. Okay, all these green, I'm salvaging all of these. Damn, I'm getting money. Yeah, we don't want none of these green ones. We only want blue and up. You bougie like that, remember that. I don't know why I can't delete this one, but... Okay, so I upgraded this quite a bit. salvage. So I can get Sunsteel, and then I can get salvage. I can get Dragon Steel for this one. So the only way to get Dragon Steel is to upgrade the ones that are purple, the epic ones. That's how you get it from the salvage. Okay. Yeah, and these guys are good, but these guys need to go too. Okay, so how do you savage this? Let's savage this. These guys gotta go. Okay. Rings, rarity. We're not doing it with these green rings. You heard, y'all? We ain't doing that. We got no charms. We got some amulets. Yep, we got some green amulets. We got some. There we go. Let's upgrade this at least one time. Just one time. Actually, I'll do it twice because I got enough. Sunsteel. Excuse me. I got enough of that. That's good, I think. Oh. Let's see. So the weapon with the eye, this is the one that applies the bleeding effect.
It's good you found Zin. He'll be useful.
He's also a friend of yours.
We're at war. You and I only have time for those we find useful.
Facts.
Perhaps. Usefulness comes after care, Orin.
What I care about is defeating Macros. If Zenon can help us do that, so much the better.
From an Earth sigil we acquired at the Vargo Fortress, I've been able to locate Zamora the Farseer. She's at her lair behind the prismatic falls. You need to acquire enough Earth sigils, including the one we already have, before we can enter her lair. You can earn them by completing hunt missions here in the Earth realm.
So this is the Earth realm. The other realms are locked. This is rewards 2 Earth sigils. Facing the Alpha Rancor will be a formidable task, but will prove you are ready for what lies ahead. So recommended level 6. So this is like a mission, I guess. Complete additional objectives, gain a bonus reward. Okay. And then this one is a level 7. According to Zenny, the cache of Old Verlian, blah blah blah. We need to recover these items and add them to our... So this is a mission to get items to make you stronger. This is a mission to gain some experience. And then this is a mission where you gotta fight the actual boss. This is yeah, it's pretty dope. I dig it. Okay, let's go for this one, y'all. So this is the monster we have to beat. Alpha Rancor. Coming for that Alpha Rancor, y'all. Coming. Come. Alright.
Looks like later Orson Welles, but from a physical fitness, younger Orson Welles type. But he just had that charisma and just kind of intelligence and size, the height that was just commanding. So a huge fan of him. I think we got to give Jim Ryan the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he's been around. He's seen how it's all done. It's okay to have a businessman in charge. I think that lowering the price of PS Now to $9.99 was the right thing to do. I think that was one of the big. I don't really know, but I put it together that this was one of the things where they fought. $19.99 was too much. $9.99 was just right. So yeah, people need to give him a chance.
Oh shit!
That's a leader of change, to kind of to lead Gorilla from Killzone into right and have it come off so well. I mean, that's a huge pivot for that studio, and they nailed it. You know, they kind of stuck the landing where Ben really kind of wobbled. So it's I think that there's leadership across the board that Sony needs, and they're going to be fine.
You know, I'm asking all these fan questions because obviously we have an audience of fans, and you know, and I'm a fan. I mean, I'm interested. I'm by the perception and the value of it. Like, I kind of go, like, Nintendo, once Iwata died, sadly, Nintendo doesn't really have a voice anymore. They're putting out great games and nobody gives a shit. They're buying tons of them. No one thinks about it, right? So it probably doesn't matter that, like, Sony isn't saying anything, right? They're not commenting on the article. They're not commenting on MLB going to Game Pass day one. They're not saying if they're going to counter and put it on PSNL day one. They're not commenting on Outriders. They're not commenting on Days Gone. They're not, you know, the rumor now that's cooking is Kojima is doing an Xbox because Jim Ryan said no. Now, Jim Ryan may have said no because I'm not knocking Death Stranding, but I don't think I do think it broke even. Like you said, they're doing these big gambles. They can't, you know. But Sony seems to continue to say it's almost like they I don't. Here's my take. I don't feel Sony can afford to take the high road anymore of just let our games speak for themselves. Because ultimately, yes, they will. But now we've got so much competition surrounding you, and you just choose to stay out of it. Do you think I'm overdoing it? And you're like, dude, they don't need to say shit. They'll say shit in the summer and the spring when they reveal new games, they reveal their changes, whatever they're going to do. And if people want to bitch and complain for 3 months, it doesn't matter. Or do you think it's like, no, they need to get out there in front of this because it's starting to hurt their brand at the hardcore, and that eventually is going to trickle down? Like, what's your take on that?
I think they're doing the right thing. I mean, it's better to say nothing, right? I think we get some wisdom or some sort of others somewhere here. I agree. I think that there's you can't win this conversation. It's not a basically when you respond, you're engaging in a debate which you can't win. And so it's best just to not engage. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate when you're starved for information. You want stuff, but it's best for them to just. And I wish I could all this advice in life. Just don't say anything. You know, it's like because it gets me into trouble. And at the end of the day, I look back and say, why did I say that? I didn't need to say that. There was no value in it. There's only penalty. So why did? So I think they're being very smart. I mean, I don't even think Microsoft has aggressive PR anymore, where they're trying to fight the trolls and the fans. I don't think that I've seen that. They have. Yeah, I don't pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, I pay a lot of attention to it. I'm into all that. You know, Phil Spencer's. Let me ask you one more thing about all that stuff that I want to get to. What do you as a developer? Because a lot, you know, I'm a big fan of features. I think Game Pass is amazing.
Oh.
Not everybody can do streaming right now, but I have PS Now. I don't like PS Now as much as Game Pass. Business decisions that I can appreciate maybe that big. But a lot of people say, oh, things like that are bad for developers. So I'm pretty sure take on something like Game Pass or PS Now and sort of bring people into the service of it.
I think it's really important. We oftentimes lose sight of the fact that even as game developers, we have access to games in ways that other people don't. You know, we're well paid, we can buy what we want, we get a lot of free stuff. So it is the reality out there is people have so much money in a year they can spend on games, and they really stress over it, and they target it, and a lot of people actually they'll research and analyze things before they'll spend their $60. So a service like Game Pass, I mean, over the course of years, it's pretty expensive, but like when you're paying a month, it's something people can do, and it's awesome. I've got it, and what's great is the friends who I could, friends on, my friends are online, but I would have a game that they did. But Game Pass, it's totally involves something. So if your friends are engaged, that you can jump from this game to this game, and you just have that frictionless content. So I think that's great. The streaming stuff I don't like. And I'm going back to the first one that online. I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it came with a little piece of hardware and everything else. It's a very cool idea. But when you're playing a racing game that's still being rendered on a server, that millisecond is fast, but those millisecond delays, I've never done this game. It's I find that off the road.
But this description stuff, you're a fan of. You think it's good?
Absolutely. And for as far as developers go, I mean, if your game launched in the Game Pass, I have no idea how that dynamic works, right? But with us, for Golden Abyss, when we entered PS Now, or PS Plus, we had already sold all the copies we were probably going to sell. Like we'd saturated the market,
Right.
and then but there's still a lot of people who working on it. So, but with PS Plus, with them getting it for free, they, there's a huge uptick, but that's real money that gets moved around on the accounting ledgers for the developers. So I think it's great for developers as a bonus, to kind of come in after the fact. This launching day one stuff, I have no idea, what the real knockdown effects are there.
Right.
But I love the idea in general.
Do you think PS Now needs to make some significant changes to compete, or maybe here's a better question? Do you think I look at Game Pass and I say that will have a seismic effect as this generation do you think PS Now, because I don't think it doesn't have to be one-to-one, but I don't think it is perceived, and I think it's correctly understood as equal or as good. Do you think they need to make some serious changes to that service in order to compete?
Well, the only thought I've ever had on that was the fact that some games you can download and install, and others you have to stream. Or use the streaming, and it's a brilliant service that probably needs a makeover and kind of a relaunch. But no, I think that if anything, worst case, it's just confusing between PS Plus and PS Now. Okay. And with Game Pass, you can, it's like you got Live, you got Gold, you got the Game Pass, but you can get Ultimate, and then you got a whole. So it's like they simplify players to make it more desirable.
What is the last thing you played on Game Pass?
Oh God! Last night I was playing some Fallout 76 with a friend, just because we always wanted to try it. And before that, I was playing State of Decay by myself. Before that, we were playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 together. Right. And probably in the last week, I probably played like 6 games on my Game Pass.
What is the last thing you played on your PS5?
Last night I played Call of Duty multiplayer, Black Ops multiplayer. So.
I'm trying to get a sense of if the day one drops are making a difference. Like for me, I'm playing more on my Xbox, even though I love my PS5, because of things like Outriders. Like I'm not going to spend $70 if I can get it for free, and I'm trying to figure out if that's isolated or not. So okay, fair enough.
I jumped in and played Outriders for a little bit too. So it's but I think that's the problem is that now. We have so many games to choose from. We're going to dabble in a lot of games instead of finish one.
Yeah, but what's great though about that to me personally is I'm trying more shit that I never would have tried. I'm playing Dirt 5. I never would have played a Dirt game because I thought they were sim games, and I'm like, oh no, this is arcade as shit. This is great, but I didn't know that until I saw it on Game Pass, and I'm like, oh, this is my new favorite game right now. So I'm obsessed with that game, right? So the dabbling, you're right, but I think it does lead to people. That's why I'm saying like Days Gone. In the PS Plus collection, I could see people going, the reviews weren't the best in the world, but, bikers and, Sons of Anarchy meets Walking Dead, are you shitting me? Yes, I want to try that, and suddenly I think it has a lot better chance to I want to bring in Paul with that. Yeah, right. This is, am I saying your name right? Arnaud, are you there? Yeah. All right, what's up? You are on with Mr. Jeff Ross. Okay. Did you want to ask him a question, or did you just want to be in his...
Oh, yeah. I would just to say, because I really use Days Gone with I'm a journalist in France.
Okay.
And the explanation why the review was not so good, I guess. Okay, so.
Are you asking, or you want to give Jeff a reason to do that?
I want to give a reason why.
Go. Speak, sir. I'm going to give you 5 seconds.
No.
You go, buddy, go. Why do you think Days Gone got the way it did?
Because there's a delay. Okay. So, basically, when we get the game to review, the fact is the game wasn't finished for clear. There was a lot of bugs, a lot of problems. There's like the 4 pages maybe, which one was about 40 gigabytes. So clearly the game wasn't finished. And I guess knowing the way people and the time people have to read the game, it was a huge problem, a huge concern for them. I was working on a paper magazine, so I had much more time to review the game and to see the entirety of the game and with all the patches done. But I guess some people may think, okay, this game is not finished, and that's why we lose some points. And that's what I wanted to say.
What was the review score you gave Days Gone? Yeah, if you're calling in, don't listen to the stream, listen to Discord. Discord's real time. The stream's got to be low.
Okay. Can you ask me again?
What was the score that you gave Days Gone?
Personally, I gave 18 out of 20, which would be like 90% objectively. But I'm quite the only one in France, actually, who gave such an effort. Most of the critics were around 70, like I say, on Metacritic. But I really do think that, people, they don't have so much time to read the game, and of course, if the game isn't finished, and obviously there are some problems, maybe it was one of the reasons why it didn't.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you so much for calling, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
He didn't have a question, but Jeff, what do you think? I mean, you guys sent out code that, like a lot of times it's not final. I'm assuming there's different patch. Do you think that's a valid reason it got hurt, or do you think?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. No, it's the game was. I mean, the game. People are saying too loud. That's true.
I think they were. Yeah, who's too loud? Was the next caller too loud, or is Jeff too loud? Okay, we'll see. We'll keep going. I don't think it was you. I don't think it was you.
Okay. So, question. Where were we?
I was saying, the code comes out and it's early.
Yes. The game was. If it worked for you, it worked for you. But it seems like when we went at scale, actually not even at scale, just with reviewers themselves, a few of them had problems, but they had a lot of problems. Some people had none. But so that was one of the damn things about it was it was generally hot or cold. But yeah, it went out a little dirty, and we had a day one patch. I think they got the. I think we asked them to install one of these patches before they would do the reviews. You can't control that, but. Even for a good while afterwards, I mean, the game was still in a state where just little stupid problems would nag some people for their whole experience, and others would get through it just fine. So they were tough to reproduce and solve, but no, it's fair. I mean, I think that Days Gone was great, but it was flawed.
Okay, this is Abad. Abad, you were on with Jeff Ross. Go.
Yes, first of all, I would like to tell Jeff that I bought Days Gone Day One and I enjoyed the game, and I hope nothing but the best for him, and I can't wait for whatever he is working on in the future. And my question is, if at some point in the future Sony came out again and told me that, we want you to work with us on a certain game, it doesn't have to be Ben, any other stuff, would you take that offer?
Abad, I'm sorry, let me figure out what's going on. Can you guys hear Abad? How are we talking? Oh, the fucking sideways, you motherfucker. God damn it, Jeff. Can you join the Discord?
Yeah, let me
Guys, forgive me, I'm so sorry. Everybody, Abad, stay on the line. While Jeff is logging into the Discord, just for the sake of time, let me, you hear the French guy?
I did.
Jeff, I just like to get listen.
Go to sleep.
Listen, here's what Abad said. Abad, I'm not going to cut you off yet. He was basically saying, first off, he bought Days Gone day one. He says, thank you. He loved it. He really enjoyed it. He thinks you're very handsome. He wants to go on a date with you. I added that part. That's a lie. But he did buy it day one, and he loves it. And he says if Sony were to reach out to you now, not necessarily with Ben, but maybe with Ben, and just say, hey, would you make another game with us? Abad wanted to know, would that be something you would be into?
Yeah, I think if the circumstances were right, and it was something that, I mean, like I said earlier, Sony's amazing for this work, and they really do support development, and it's something where it's something I just sense that you're not getting that in most from most publishers in the industry. So yeah, it's a hell of a whisper. You know, I don't think that'll ever, you know, happen, but if it did, I would listen for sure. I would be excited to listen.
Why do you think that would never happen?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a businessman, you know, like I don't know, if they came to me, we'd have to figure out what that meant. But yeah, right now I work someplace else.
You know? Have you said where you work? I know where you work. I haven't said it. You said where you work?
Yeah, it's a secret. I haven't got to do it now. You know, I'm not doing game direction, I'm doing design management, leadership, and stuff like that. And, you know, but I do miss designing. You know, I do miss kind of making those types of decisions and everything. So I don't know if this is going to be my forever job, but we'd see. I mean, I think if it was Sony or somebody else would like, check this game can only be made for you, I would listen.
Okay. You're still in Oregon?
Yeah, until the pandemic's over.
Are you in the Discord now?
No, I couldn't find it, dude.
Oh, I'm not, trust me. If you've heard the stories, they're all true. I can't do shit without it. I'm going to give it to you over on Twitter. Yeah?
Yep.
There's the Discord. Sorry, fellas. Abad, in the meantime, did Jeff get you good? Was a good answer to your question, buddy?
I'll hear it, but I can't hear it on Discord and open the video on YouTube.
Oh,
so
okay.
Later on.
Okay, hear it later on. Abad, sorry, thank you for helping us test my idiocy. I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks, man. All right, bud. All right, let me bring in somebody else, but let's get Jeff on so we can actually know that I'm not making all this up. I'll tell you what, a journal in the chat says Oregon is so beautiful. I don't know, man. I have fallen in love with Oregon just because the days gone. I've never been there. And it is gorgeous. I mean, in the game, you guys really looked amazing. You're very inviting. I know it's kind of hard to get people hired because there's not a lot of hotbed in video game development. But goodness gracious, if the game looks as good as the real place, yeah, I think it's are you in now?
No, did you hear it?
Yeah, I did on Twitter.
Yeah, that's the end of it.
The last thing that says ha ha ha, and then I put join the Java Discord server.
Yeah, haha is the last thing I see. Alright, let's keep asking questions. Pretty lame to me. We'll figure this out. I'm all about your tech.
Sending it in chat on Twitter. I'm trying to figure out which number. Can I send you something on Zoom? Maybe let me send it to you on Zoom.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
Speak of lights on.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for your patience, Jeff. But yeah, the best thing I ever did was with design manager. Because that was like, the teams are getting so big now. It can't be like it was back in the day. So it's actually really good to have. Okay, so are you on now?
Yeah, I gotta remember my login.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
No, it's all my fault. I didn't think that. Shut up, broken gamer, you fuckstick. He says, 2 old men struggling. You know what, fucker? It beats the alternative. You know what? Let me ask you a question. You find there's ageism in this industry?
From these millennials that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And I have had people come in and kids right out of college, God bless them, say they were doing everything wrong and because we're old. And, you know, so this judgment definitely goes in both directions to some extent.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm like, you're right, I'm wiser than you. You might be smarter.
Right.
You know, but I've been around the block. I know what's going to work and what's not going to work.
And I'm also running the company, you fuckstick, so fucking just shut up.
And they all want to do it, too. They all want to do that from the beginning.
That's fine, they don't do it. But don't do it then the fucking Sony studio, go make your own fucking thing.
Exactly.
Which I tell them anyway, if I was a kid going to fucking game college, at this point, I wouldn't come out and work in a big AAA studio. I'd make my own shit. Because what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, they come out capable to be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, they're very capable and they're very good at what they do. Yeah, to go work at AAA is selling out right away.
Well, and it's also like, oh, look, I spent the last 2 years doing rust texture on Days Gone cars. It's like, really? Someone's got to do it, but I don't imagine that was their dream.
Right.
All right, are you in now?
I am not going to just get the volume.
He has a point. I'm in game college.
Actually, I'm going to repeat here. I'm going to bring on...
You got a point.
I wish I knew who had been waiting the longest, but I don't, so I apologize, fellas. This is...
That's why I make games right now.
Markham, are you there?
Damn, there's mad people over here. It's like a party.
I'm here.
All right,
yeah, I'm here.
All right, Jeff.
No, not yet.
Okay, Markham, go ahead and ask, and I'll relay to Jeff on these.
Can you go ahead and admit that they withhold the day one patch, and it's already finished. They just withhold the day one patch. They can cut out the sell market in the future when the servers go off. Also,
I gotta relay that to him, so I gotta make sure I understand. So you're asking me to ask Jeff. This is so weird. Can I ask Jeff to admit that he delayed the day one patch?
The game was already finished. They just delayed the day one patch, so they won't have to put all the data on the disk. So within the future, when the servers are turned off, the game can be released.
Why would they want to? Okay, here's what he's asking. Are you here yet or no? Okay, he's asking. He says he's under the impression that the day one disk did not have all the data on it, and the day one patch exists primarily in order for you guys that when the servers get turned off, the game will be useless. I can't fathom why anybody would want their game to be useless. Am I understanding your question?
Some game will be resale. Developers don't really like the resale market because it cuts them out of the profits.
Yeah, but if you why would the resale market care about a game that if you sold it to them, the servers are turned off, nobody would want to buy your game because you can't get the day one patch either if you want to use, right? I don't think your question makes a lot of sense, good sir. I love you. I appreciate you calling in.
No. The game, 20 years from now, the game is there. The game is useless without the day one patch.
Hang on a second. Jeff, where are you at with this right now? What's going on?
I just can't get into the voice of this
I'll bring
channel's long.
let me bring you on right now. So you are in our server, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your name? I'll just bring you into a private thing so we can hear everything.
This is Hefe Rocket.
Sorry, we should have done this before. I didn't even think about it. I'm so sorry. Sit tight, Marco. Let me just get Jeff on because I need him to hear this because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, sir.
All right, I sent that to you through.
Yep, there you go. That's a cool name, Jeff.
It's not my best.
Okay, hang on.
For some reason, I couldn't use my other one. It was weird. I'm sorry, guys.
That's not you, man. It's me. It's my fault. I didn't even think about this. So you have joined. You're a member. You're probably being told right now you gotta wait 10 minutes or some such shit.
Yeah, I got that on. Yeah, on my desktop map here. I don't know if this is gonna work, dude.
It'll work. I got it. Hang on. Maybe. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me get a different question in a second. Okay, so Murkin, I'll bring you back on the first time. Thanks, buddy. All right, this is the Walking Fish. Go, buddy. What do you want to say to Jeff?
Hello. I have something to say about his game, the Days Gone game. I think it's a really good game, and I rated it like 7.5. But there's a problem when the first 7 hours are so fun, but then it just get bored because the world is just if you played Race 2 from Bethesda, it's like the same thing. They just get bored and yes. So I think if they're gonna do a second game or something like that, they should just make the world more fun and have life on it. So yes, that's my opinion on the game.
I will talk to him. Thank you. All right, thanks, buddy. So he says he loves the game. He says the first 7 hours were great, but then you get bored of it. My question is, it is a long game. Was that, as a designer, was that the vision, you wanted it that long, or was that more of a concession to the market of a $60 price point? It's got to be that long, or do you think it needed to be that long?
I think it could have been tightened up here and there, but in general, if you're a single player game, you want to provide as much value to the consumer as possible. So, we were quantifying it as maybe a 30-hour golden path, which felt big and that seems doable. I forget what what the average playthrough was, but it was much longer than that. Some people could probably finish the game in 30, 35 if they just cranked through it. But we wanted to build a game that was just the right size. I think that it was big. It was the right size. It was just inefficient in some of the narrative and gameplay things that we did. But I think that I'm proud that we didn't milk it and make it longer, because we could have very easily by just adding more open world activities and more Nero checkpoints and all this. But we felt like we hit a sweet spot. But the real challenge with making a game like Days Gone is when it takes 35 hours to beat if you're cranking through it, and 60 plus hours to beat if you're just letting it breathe. Yeah, that's a really tough thing to measure in the middle of development, especially when the build is broken at certain points. So even if it's not broken, just to get through it, you're talking that's more than a work week. Yeah, and it's a really tough thing to measure and assess. So you're going by your gut, you're going off of anecdotal data, memory, and focus test data. But I think I'm proud of the fact that it was that large because it was valuable to the people who wanted to engage her.
Do you like long games as a player? Or do you think? No. I don't either. That's what I'm curious about. I mean, if somebody came to me and said make a AAA game, I would struggle because I'd be like, okay, can it be 6 hours? Because I don't want to play. As a designer, I kind of go, you burn through so much of your shit in the first couple of hours, and then it just feels like flop sweat desperation to keep people on the hook. But I'm hoping again with Game Pass now you won't have that stress. This is Travion. Travion, go.
Yeah, before I ask my question, I just want to say I played Days Gone a few days ago, and I just want to take that day back because that game is fucking trash. I don't know what y'all developers think when y'all made the game and now we gassed the field. Jeff Russell is ugly as hell, but you like, yo, that's too much to back on niggas. You like you get broke on the cop.
Basically, Jeff, that was one of the. Okay, this is Roman. Go, Roman, go, buddy.
Alright, hello. By the way, before I say anything about Days Gone, I just want to say that the person that was talking all that shit, that was spamming in the chat, GDs, that guy was impersonating a YouTuber. But anyways, other than that, getting back to Days Gone, I liked the game. I thought it was really good. If I was to rate it like out of a 10 by that scale, I'll give it a 9 to 10. 9 to 10 because it felt a little repetitive in some of the missions. And
question.
But yeah. My question I wanted to ask about the director is that if he was to make a sequel to Days Gone, would he ever like to make the inclusion of any online co-op, any 2-player online co-op?
Let me ask. Thanks, man. I appreciate the question. Thanks for waiting, buddy. Okay, guys, we're going to ask questions now. Just Jeff can't be right. I don't mean to be a dick. Just get right to the point because otherwise Jeff's just sitting there. I think it's fair. Okay, he wants to. I'm so sorry. What's it on right now?
12 seconds.
So what he wanted to know is if you were to have stuck around and do Days Gone 2, what do you think about adding? He likes it. He says it was like a 9 out of 10. What did you say about adding online co-op?
That would be awesome. And we wanted co-op games, but obviously you have to make concessions to what you're not going to be able to do early.
Would you have played?
It would have been a secondary mode if we had done it the first one or in another one. I would have complicated the main narrative and kind of focus on that, because that's really what we're good at, and that was the strength of the first title. So build on that, make it better, but then take this world and all these assets and systems, and then repurpose them for some sort of similarly themed multiplayer version of this universe. And so would it be a spider game, like the guys like Ethan and Boozer trying to describe building up a clubhouse, right? Kind of forward, but I think it'd be a lot of fun to be in that world and just see what forward battles look like.
Was that part of the sequel that you guys were going to do? Was that sort of built in the beginning?
It's one of the things that we had in our pitch. Yeah, it was the idea of just a shared universe with co-op play.
Okay. Are you in now, Jeff? Okay. If you are, there is a channel called Tilo or Last of Us 2. If you just put yourself in there, you'll be good to go.
All right. I might be in.
Jake Rocket, there you go. All right, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the echo, of course. You got to turn down your stream, but... Okay, so Jeff is here now. I apologize, you guys. Totally my fault. I didn't even think about it. But we are ready to go. This is Random News Brain. Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Just wanted to say thank you to John and
Hang on. We got bad echoes. Where's that coming from? I know where it's coming from. I got a DJ. Jeff. Okay, go again, Random.
So I'm probably rephrasing some stuff that Kirk Ham said in the street a year ago with Happy News, but what made you join that some of you don't know, I'm not Sony Ben or the Game Change. I asked because they had fairly love TV and they were kind of on the wall and joining the team at that time.
Great question. So, I was basically a blue-collar worker. I think I was, I had a job that I was doing tech support for Microsoft at some point. And before that, I was delivering appliances and furniture, and I worked in a sawmill at one point. So everything you just described was not a concern of mine because it was getting into games. And, they moved on past PUBG. And probably what I found really interesting was during the interview, I saw this game because I love GoldenEye and I love James Bond movies and all this. And the developers were showing me the game, and they were almost like not even certain it was going to be a good game. And I'm like, are you guys? They didn't realize they were onto something. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. I would buy this in a heartbeat and play the hell out of it. So for me, that was the opportunity to get into the game industry, but also to work on something I thought was really cool. And honestly, without PUBG, there never would have been a Siphon Filter. From the engine and the business connection, the engine they made, business connection that they built at Sony, there never would have been a Siphon Filter without a PUBG. So there's, through that lens, PUBG is a great anecdote, but it was basically the foundation upon which everything else was built. Now, most of us weren't involved. There are still a couple of people left who work on PUBG, but really, most of us were new to it, so we can kind of say, yeah, not us.
People don't give that game credit. PUBG was actually the first 3D platformer of Mario 64. I saw PUBG at E3, PUBG 3D. Yeah, it wasn't the world's greatest game, of course, but it was the first team to try to crack it. So that's kind of worth something. This is Basement Radio Podcast, arcade podcast coming in for Jeff. You're on Basement Go.
Hey Jeff. Jeff. Quick question for you. Can you confirm that Days Gone took place in the Siphon Filter world? There's been many articles about Easter eggs, quoting a Siphon Filter. Does the game in fact take place in that world? And do you think that services like Game Pass are kind of the future of gaming? Many of us will be subscribing to services to get content.
Yep. No, I didn't hear the question. I'll go to the end.
Basement, say something again.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you fine. Jeff, can you hear him?
Yeah, I know that.
No, I hear the feedback. That's it.
Okay, so you are in the thing. You have.
How the hell do you do this?
Coming from out of Discord.
My laptop.
Okay, and say something. Give me a test, Basement.
Testing.
So you're not hearing that?
No.
So your audio from Discord is probably not coming through your laptop. Or if it is, maybe it's coming through a speaker that's not turned on, or a different jack or something.
Yeah. I don't know.
Shit. Oh, man. Okay, these are some good questions. Let me, where would you go?
You have to go to that Discord right now.
Yeah, that's the, yeah, I'm going to turn that on Discord, nothing else.
What he's asking while I'm trying to figure this shit out is, there is a rumor, which I think is pretty cool, that the Days Gone universe takes place in the Siphon Filter universe, which I'm sure you've heard, and the world is the way it is as Days Gone opens, I guess because it's fucked up, I don't know. What is the, what's the official word on that?
There is no official word, but if I could lay down the official word, I say the universe is 100%. We put this stuff in, at best, it's an Easter egg to kind of just wink and a nod to our similarity as a developer, but I think that the timelines line up, and it would just be really interesting, and to make this a game in that universe. And when we did Resistance Retribution too, that was a game based on a virus, and in our game it was actually an STD and everything. So Ben just kind of made their name creating virus-oriented games. So I'm like, why wouldn't we just kind of combine them? We didn't do it with Resistance Retribution, but for the Siphon Filter IP that we own, we threaded it through as an Easter egg, leaving ourselves room to say later whether it is truly part of the universe.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, I'm just gonna read it to you guys. We're just gonna do that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Go. What's up, man? Yeah. Just wait.
Hi. So I was wondering. I wanted to ask Jeff about what he felt about cross-gen games, like for example, New Horizon Zero Dawn. That's on PS4.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a question. All right.
And I want because everyone's concerned about PS4 side-playing game development in PS5, so I wanted to know Jeff's opinion about that, and if possible, Design 2 was going to be a cross-gen game.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Oh shit, I just give that away. Sorry, buddy. Okay, so he wants to know your opinion on cross-gen game development in terms of there is a fear amongst gamers that, for example, Horizon, I think the new Horizon, I forget which one they've announced. Some of these are on PS4 and PS5. And the fear is on PS5 and PS4 you're having to make concessions on the PS5 version, and that's not why we want a PS5. We want and he wants to know from the developer standpoint, what is your take on that? And was Days Gone 2 going to be cross-gen, or was it going to be exclusive to PS5?
I think it's a great question, because I've often thought that there's been kind of game like Horizon coming out, Forbidden West, something like that, is the install base on the PS5 is just that big. So I think that it's just a nod to, hey, look, we gotta make money on this, we gotta make profit, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of people who go to PS4 who either can't buy a PS5 or can't find one, who are going to be grateful to have access to these titles. But I think it's something you're only going to see for the first couple of years, and then it's going to realize, and I don't know if there's an official TRC or anything about it, but I think it's just a transitional thing on it. And to be fair to Sony, I mean, what Microsoft is doing with Game Pass, I mean, so far they're not focusing on innovation in their controller and in their hardware. They're not focused on launch titles that they own. But what Game Pass and Xbox, I got the X, Series X, and One, is just really cool that those same games play across the board. So the same, that same intent of making things as accessible as possible that exists over the Microsoft system, that's kind of what you're seeing with the PS5 and PS4 versions. It's a business thing, but it's also cool.
I think you're right. Okay, so this is Caveman, go.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you guys were talking about how long games or whatever. I always thought $35 game, 10-hour kind of thing. But I'm wondering, financial budget-wise, is most of the money spent on the systems and sort of building out that, and actually lengthening the game is sort of cheaper by nature?
Gotcha.
Is that kind of how the financials work?
Thanks, bud. All right, Caveman wants to know, he like shorter games as well. The budgets are going up. If you were to say, let's make a Days Gone 2 or a brand new IP or a Siphon Filter PS5, is it the length of the game that contributes massively to the budget, or is it more getting it up to speed, getting the core systems in, finding the fun, and then at that point, length of course is costly because it's content, but that's not where the lion's share of the cost is this question.
Yeah, that's a great question, because like for a game like kind of linear game where it's, say you have 30 missions, you can cut out 5 missions or 8 missions and just kind of have it still work. The other players may never really know if it's done properly. But with a game like Days Gone, where it's so systemic, and there are a lot of components of those, they're really expensive in creating that vertical aspect of the game. And the horizontal building things out kind of content, yeah, that adds to it, but cutting out the width doesn't change how color it is. These are project management terms, I know, but it's something where it does have some cost, but really the real cost is in creating the core and everything that comes together, and it just takes forever to come together.
Yeah. How are you on time? We have tons of questions. Are you okay?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna serve them up. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Kiristafa, I love you. You're verbose as fuck. Keep this quick because Jeff is not able to hear you. Go ahead, Kiristafa.
Okay, so Jeff worked on Dark Watch for a short time of his life. Yeah. And I just wanted to know, like, how that came about, how he's, at Ben's studio, and then all of a sudden he's at High Noon for, like, a short period, and then back to Ben. That was just a
Alright, let me ask you. Thanks, buddy. Call back anytime on the normal stream. I'm sorry I got to do that. Alright.
No problem.
He's saying, I thought of this. He says, you're at Eidetic, then you're at Ben, which is Eidetic, and then you're at High Noon, and then you're back at Ben. He's like, how did that happen?
Okay, so it was my first job in the industry, and that's there were 5 years. It shipped 3 Siphon Filter games, working on this Omega Strand game. I didn't necessarily love the direction of Omega Strand being like heavily multiplayer, getting away from our strengths. And I was young and dumb, and I kind of thought that I knew better than the studio, and I'm like, I'm gonna go out there and find my way and do something different, and I loved it. And when Sammy recruited me, so I lived down in Crossville actually for a couple years working there, and eventually Sammy folded. It's a complicated Japanese business relationship with some former people from Midway, but it folded, and we lost all of this great cheaper money funding. So they laid a lot of people off. I got laid off, but they still were so close to finishing Dark Watch that they contracted me back on to finish. But at that point, they were hiring people back too. But I again, being kind of young and to find like that millennial that I was talking about earlier, yes, I was doing the same shit. It's just, we don't even call them millennials, it's just called people that are still trying to find a way, right?
I think we call them
there we go. So, at that point, this was actually, I've been playing a lot of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, and I'm like, open world, this is the future, and I want to be a part of that. So, I got a job at Rockstar, to go work on this game that by the time my visa went through and I arrived in the building, the day I showed up, that game was canceled and Foley was announced and they kind of rolled our team into theirs. And they were great. They offered me a position to kind of do whatever I wanted to, but I was just looking at the signs and I'm like, okay, maybe this wasn't the place for me to come to, but I got to work with their tools for about 3 months before I left and kind of see how open world games are made to a certain extent. And then I went to another company because I had to leave there, and it was the Collective down in Newport, and I was, they hired me in just as a designer to come work, but then when I showed up, they're like, okay, you're lead designer of Dirty Harry, the other guy quit. So I was in charge of that, and that project was in trouble. I think I was the 4th lead designer by the time I started.
Oh, that's
it was like a 9-month run where we were able to kind of like make progress with the publisher and create demos and advance things, but it just wasn't. I mean, it wasn't coalescing the way that I thought was necessary to kind of like be able to do right. And about the same time, Ben did actually. I talked about Omega Strand earlier. Like this game was another big epic game that just kind of didn't live up to expectations. There was fear that maybe the studio would be closed, But then they made this great game on the PSP, Siphon Filter Dark Mirror, that kind of rejuvenated the series and the developer. So Garvin called me out, or actually I congratulated Garvin on the success. He's like, hey dude, we love where you're at right now. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, oh. And so he recruited me back as a narrative designer from, what I was doing. And I'm like, that's interesting. And Garvin, to his credit, he was a guy who saw that I had story in me and I could come in and kind of help make a difference. So I came back and I left as a lead. There were still some people there, and all I wanted to do was come back as a senior, just be somebody who was a contributing designer, best wingman on the planet. So they lured me back, and I was there for 15 years. Did a multitude of things. I did narrative design on a couple games, did like pure level design on Golden Abyss, did game direction on BlizzCon. So it's been a cool ride coming back.
Okay, I'm going to get to some super chats right now, Jake, if you're cool with that. Jake, I know your name's not Jake. I'm looking at the goddamn thing. All right, here's some super chats. All right, Basement Radio says, let's go. Thank you for that. Okay, Solid Snake says, I love Days Gone. Thank you for giving us such an amazing game. That's a nice super chat. Just say thank you. Red 13 says, thank you for Days Gone, man. A beautiful game and my game of the year 2019. I've platinumed it twice. It is without a doubt my top 10 game of all time. That's got to feel fucking good. Embrace the Black Pill says, here's some super chats. Thank you so much. Why haven't they made another Siphon Filter, says Craigie Mate. What was that about? Because I heard that Sony gets probably requested 4 or 5 times a week to where's my Siphon Filter? What's the holdup? What do you think the reason is?
I think it's all been done. In my opinion, I personally do not have the ideas that would sustain a modern Siphon Filter type game and do something new. I mean, when they're making Siphon Filter 1, it was nobody was doing a game like that. But after we did Siphon Filter 1, then everybody got things. Specifically Ubisoft, and they really kind of figured stuff out in a way. Iterations of that franchise. Was that
Splinter Cell? You mean?
Yeah. And so so Splinter Cell was Siphon Filter in a lot of ways. So and I think the market got saturated, and I played most of those games. So what I found as a gamer is I've been to every little kind of third world corner of the world. I've fought in all kinds of mercenary forces. Prevented nuclear annihilation many times. Being so kind of grounded in reality, I don't really know where there's room to go that hasn't been done. And Siphon Filter is also these kind of espionage and military components with Call of Duty just setting the high watermark every time what they're doing. I just think the Days Gone Siphon Filter needs a spark. It needs a germ of an idea that feels modern, not done before, and it's something to do with the conventional real world.
I get the same. I have the exact same response. Say, why can't we have any Twisted Metal? I don't have. A, I don't think something would make it. B, I don't know what else we can do, at least in that way. Embrace the Black Pill. Thank you for the super chat. Sir Callahan says, what was it like playing Days Gone live at 2016? What was the experience like?
Can you say that again?
Yes, he says, what was it like for you playing Days Gone live at 2016?
Oh, dude, that was rad. It was one of those things where I didn't have to speak in public, which was good, but just being up there in the hot seat, watching, there's a lot of pressure. So I approached it from a fear of failure point of view. It's whatever I have to do to not fail, I don't screw up on that stage is what we're going to do. So I trained, I practiced, I practiced a lot, and I had to take notes that I used to script what kind of things the cameras and stuff. So when it got to the showtime and we showed up for the dress rehearsal, I wasn't nervous at all. And as soon as PR started leading me back and up the stairs, then I just got this sudden pangs of guilt or panic, and I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing? What have I done? But then I just sat down and I did the dry run, the dress rehearsal, and felt good. Practiced with the orchestra, which was kind of weird. If I practice, I just played while they played. It's not like we kind of worked off each other. But then the day of the show, I just we showed up, and it was great. Garvin and I showed up. He was in the booth next to me, and you couldn't see him. But we go backstage. We're sequestered for 5 hours. We were sequestered with Corey, with Kojima, because we're like, oh, these guys are announcing here. But the funniest thing was, nobody, they wouldn't allow us to leave to go get food. We were in there for so long. But like, I'm like, well, Corey and Garvin and Kojima can't go out there. But you have Frost can, so I go.
Because they're worried people would see you and spoil the surprise, right?
Who I was, so I was able to kind of get on it at that point. But then later that night, when I went out and did it, it went off perfect. The thing that really kind of gets under my jaw is the fact that people think it was a video or that it was fake. I'm like, no, it was real. It's like literally the only thing that we did was put collision on the rooftops, so I wouldn't accidentally run off, right? And that was literally the only cheat that we did. And everything else was done live. And
Sony was always very insistent on that. Even when I was like, can I please show a fucking video? It sells it better. They're like, I know, but yeah, it's pain, but it works. It's good.
Yep. It was an adrenaline rush too. I mean, it's like when I finished that, just having everything done and having it behind me and not screwing it up was a great feeling. But I knew how like rock stars felt because in the morning I'm like, I still can't go to sleep. I'm still wired. From that adrenaline surge. So that was one of the highlights of my time at Sony for sure.
Cool. That's awesome. It is because I hate when people say that's awesome and it's like it's a throwaway. I mean, it's awesome because I've done it. I know exactly what you mean. And my it's not that I can't sleep because of the adrenaline. It's because I'm always checking the internet. The minute I'm back to my hotel room after that, I'm just like, what did they think? Did they like it? Did they hate it? Did they like it? So
I try to avoid that because it's one thing where I did watch it, but I didn't think everything. Because I realized like, this is a rabbit hole. You're gonna get you get the distorted sense of something. It doesn't give you the true story, but it was positive. And so even then, I didn't want to indulge in it too much.
Was the team happy when you got back? They felt.
Oh yeah. No, it was perfect. We had a huge contingent of people that were there, just either on their own or the company sent them or subsidized it somehow. And so we had a great team dinner at some restaurant, and everybody was there first. So when I showed up, I got the big stands for everybody. It was a great team building moment, but it was really powerful.
Can you ask Mr. Ross, this is Callie's thing, Jeff says, about Deacon's psychological growth? I felt the character evolve. Was that an art? He had an art? He says, ask about the growth. I haven't finished it yet. I'm not quite sure what he wants you to talk about. Got your thoughts on that?
Risk of spoiling it for you, Dave. Deacon's arc is from, and maybe some people get into with but his arc to me was how the outsider tried to maintain the ultimate, and then slowly learning about people and camps, and becoming part of that ultimately becoming a leader of him. Because if you're an outlaw motherfucker gang member, you don't fit in. Society is a place that doesn't welcome you or play your strengths. So to me, the arc always was he basically could never have achieved this type of leadership level in the pre-pandemic society, but he was the perfect one to become the leader in the post-pandemic world.
What about the complaint? I saw this in the reviews that. What about what about the whole thing that he sells this woman to the camp? And I mean, was that like because you wanted him to grow from?
I'll be right back. 1 second, y'all.
Yeah. place, accusing him of toxic masculinity, of, basically they weren't well received. And some people loved him, but most didn't. But over the course of time, the lens changed. So it's a long way of saying reviews are highly subjective opinions that speak to the person reviewing the game and the nature of the game and the time it's reviewed. And what I would say is we didn't do ourselves any favors sometimes by the order of introduction of things, or just the tone of the game, using that line from where he says, where Sarah says, "As long as you ride me as much as you ride your bike." That was from Sons of Anarchy. It was the fact that was said in Sons of Anarchy, and it's in the spirit of the character. It was said mockingly, but if you're jaded to that, or if you don't see those dimensions, you're just going to see what sounds like a really terrible statement for a woman to say about herself. So
I thought that was great.
I think about the reviewers giving the developer the benefit of the doubt, which I don't think that we ever really get.
Right. No, I love that line because I knew the context of she's marrying the guy. She's not she's not being accosted. It's not non-consent. She's like, we're going to be together the rest of our lives. I would hope it's a sexual relationship where they want to fuck each other. And it was just like, why don't, when I was married, we talked pretty raunchy. I don't know why that can't be. It's just crazy. Okay, so we have Revenger, Super Chat, thanks, sir. He says, we know Days Gone, this is him saying this, he's speculating, we know Days Gone already sold 5 million copies. Sony canceled Days Gone 2 and almost made Ben a Naughty Dog support studio. Isn't this really disrespectful to Ben Studios? That is coming.
Disrespectful?
Well, his thesis, his thesis assumes he's right. I don't know if you want to address if he's right or if you just want to answer his question. But his question is, they canceled Days Gone 2. You guys sold 5 million copies of Days Gone 1. Clearly, there's an audience for it. And they were going to turn you guys into a Naughty Dog support studio, which, depending on which rumor you go with, is actually what's happening. I have heard that Days Gone 2 is not in production. I have heard the new IP is contingent upon Ben completing certain work with other studios, and it's kind of being used as a carrot on a stick to get Ben to do that. And I don't know if that's true. These are all rumors.
Yeah, no, that's false.
Okay.
It's completely false. There was an opportunity to work with them in a limited way, and that was just to kind of keep the staff happy. When working on a game in the early days, there's not a lot to work on. So
right.
It was just a chance to get people idle hands working, and a lot of people were desperate to go do it because they didn't have anything that was significant to do at the time. But no, Ben was never going to be a support studio for Naughty Dog. Some people would say that because people are fearful of things, but no, that was never a reality. It was collaborative.
Okay. And can you say what they're doing now, or you just can't? That's not your.
But like I said,
that's okay.
This goes directly to my NDA and
no worries
and everything.
Okay. Old Republic Fox says, thank you for Super Chat, buddy. He says, is there a chance Siphon Filter remake will be released someday? Games about secret agents are brilliant. I think you've kind of answered that, but there will always be secret agent games, but in terms of Siphon Filter, it's probably dead, but Sony has all of these, I don't know what the right thing is for Sony to do, given they've got all this goodwill on these brands, whether it's Twisted Metal, Siphon Filter, Cobalt #1. There's so many people that fall in love with the stuff that came up with this stuff. I don't know if they're leaving money on the table I don't think they should be greenlighting $200 billion Twisted Metal games, or even a Twisted Metal game. I know they're talking about doing a TV show, but I don't know. I don't. It seems weird that they just let these things die. But maybe that's what you do when you have so many IPs. I don't know.
And the fact that creating a new version of anything is just so prohibitive anymore, and it's something where you gotta. And this is what you can't fault them for betting on sure things. That's fine. But all of these things. Twisted Metal. Siphon Filter, I think the real question would be can they stand the test of time? Would a modern version of these things be innovative enough. I mean, back in the day, you could create a game around Earthworm Jim, and that would be really successful, right? Like, those days are gone.
Yeah.
You know, that might exist in the Unity or the iPhone world, but it's just, those were the AAA games of the day. You know, and I think that with Twisted Metal and Days Gone, like, would they, or with Siphon Filter, would they really play well to modern audiences?
I don't think so.
There that kind of, and when you have games like, again, Call of Duty, Fortnite, these guys are blowing everything out. Like, they're raising the bar for what people think are cool. And basically, those were the things that we used to do. Like, look at this, you're saving the U.S. from getting blown up by a nuke. You know, it's players have done things like that, or better, or more exciting, or more extreme. It's just a tough space to compete in, especially the reality-based games.
Right. I agree. I think a lot of it is, how do you educate people out of that mindset, or maybe you just go, you gotta learn. It's life. It's part of growing up with something and loving it, and it changes and it sucks. But you know, I'm never going to have Indiana Jones be Indiana Jones who he was when I was 10. It's not going to happen. Jaffe says basement radio drops super chat. Jaffe, it's not free on Game Pass. Ha ha ha. Yes, psychologically Game Pass is free. I understand what you're saying. Drowned by Fire, thank you. He says 70 and low 80 scores are not bad meta scores. They're not, but they are when you've got an industry full of 90s, right? I mean, a 70's the kiss of death for a lot of people. They won't buy it. I do think with Game Pass and with PS Now, you start to get a little bit more parity, like with film, where the critics don't have to love King Kong versus Godzilla for it to be a huge smash, because the barrier of entry is almost nothing for people. But when you're asking people for 60 and these days $70, they're going to use that score as one of the key reasons they make a choice. Drowned by Fire says Jim Ryan is the man Sony picked to see PS fans through Xbox hard push. Jim and Herman are shrewd operators just like Phil. They will get it done. Okay, he just wants us to know that. I'm sure Jim Ryan's watching and going, thank God. But no, I appreciate that, buddy. I hope you're right. I will tell you, optically, I think Sony's doing a shit job right now when it comes to communicating comfort and confidence at a sort of a fan leadership level, but it may not be necessary. There may be no value in it, but I do think they're pissing off fans for whatever that's worth, and it may not be worth anything. How do you decide, Jeff, says Gene, thank you, buddy, how much a developer gets paid for a subscription service? They're thinking about MLB. So do you have any insight into that?
Fairly. I mean, it's a negotiation. You know, even if you're a Sony entity, there's all kinds of different things you're negotiating with. So you're negotiating as a second or third party, and but it is just that. I don't think that there's a fixed rate or going rate for anything, and it's a little bit like signing major league contracts, right? Like, right. You know, some guys make $100K and some guys make $50 million, and it's just up to them and their agent to kind of do the best for their client. So it's good, but you know, I will say this, and this is just me supposing things. Netflix, HBO Max, Paramount, all these things, they're loss leaders. You know what I mean? Like, their business models right now are about sinking a ton of capital into these enterprises, hoping they get a user base that can then ultimately eventually be profitable. And I think that's one of the things that we're kind of losing sight of here, is that it's basically like Google and Stadia. They're just burning money trying to establish a base. And it's I don't know if this is just as a developer or a player, I don't know if long term the economics will always make sense once the Game Pass owner tries to kind of convert it into a profit stream, not just a user base that they is brought into their ecosystem.
Well, whenever that comes up here, especially when you have an NBA, I'm very curious about this since you're speaking about it. What I always say to people, and maybe I'm wrong, is that I get that Netflix is a loss leader and they're starting to not be, but for a while they were. But if you're Bob Iger running Disney, or if you're the guys running HBO Max, or if you're the guys running Paramount Plus or whatever, I assume that you have vast teams of MBAs that run the numbers and go, we see it at Netflix, we see it at Disney Plus, we want in on that. Are you saying all of them are jumping in without any of them having made profit? Or do you think they run the numbers and go, oh, this works? Because it seems a really big gamble that a lot of massive companies with a lot of smart people are making, where there's no sense of this can work for us.
Yeah, and so by the way, I've got a bachelor's. I don't have an MBA. That would be awesome. But I'm just going off of my own opinion based on loose data that I have. But I think that they know that the upside to be the dominant force 10 years from now is huge, right? But they're going to have to invest and eat quarterly losses, which is a totally different game that these guys play. But I think it's fear of missing out. You know what I mean? And there's really already the pain points for the consumers are, man, I got to spend $10 on this. I got to spend $15 on that. Like, well, I might as well have cable at this point. Like, we're back to the cable situation.
Right.
And I just think that the market, again, anecdotal, but a lot of people, when Netflix raises their prices $1, they bitch and moan, even though it's still a tremendous value at whatever the new price is.
Right.
So consumers aren't going to be able to sustain whatever energies they're doing right now across a lot of things. It's my prediction.
I think you're right.
It's absolutely just a prediction. But I think all these MBAs that these places are, again, they're looking to the future that they have to invest in deeply now in order to be successful 10 years.
It's going to be interesting if it isn't profitable because it's such a good value and it's such a good experience, at least if you're talking about Game Pass, that I'll be pissed if they take it away. But then again, so what?
Right.
If they can't afford it, they can't afford it. Chongo drops super chat. I'm going to read it with censored because he's spoiling stuff. There's a location that he says is one of my favorite sites in the USA. It was an awesome third act surprise to have it so integral to Days Gone, but I'm not going to say what it is. So Chongo, thank you. Joseph says, Days Gone, thank you, buddies. Found me in a very dark part. I love getting stuff like this. I'm sad, but I love it. Days Gone found me in a very dark part of my life, and it helped me keep going, just like Deacon did. It is my all-time favorite game. Thank you. Jeff Ross, I'm about to cry. That's nice. And then I love hearing it. It's amazing how much the shit we do sometimes. You release it to the world and you go on with your life. And then it's actually out there affecting people like that. Is that?
It is. No, and, one of the things that people don't really appreciate is we're regular people. We're just regular dudes who are fans of other things, just like they may be fans of our work. And so I could really, I have those moments with other games, like Last of Us 1 and 2. I fucking love this. It's one of my best games, my favorite games of all time. So every time I've met those reps, I'm like, dude, this game's, blah, 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 this is the best. That fanboy out of it. I had Troy Baker, and I couldn't prevent myself from saying, oh, baby girl. Just because these things have moved me in some other ways. So I will say, and it's the one thing, and I've read other developers who said that this will happen for years, is that you're always going to be somebody who the game touched or that belongs to when you can never comprehend, and they're going to reach out for years. And so far, it's looking crappy. I get all kinds of direct messages of people who are just they're rough places in their life, and for some reason, this game came along at that moment and spoke to them, and may or may not have truly spoken, but they think that it did. It was part of many things that that's part of their anchor to reality or life at this point. So it's amazing when people invest $60 and then 60 hours of their time. They're invested. Yeah. They want all these things for it. And they're going to overlook the flaws because the rest of the game is in the spirit that they signed up for. But it is great. It is great to touch people and have them just reach out, especially when you do have the 7100. When you have the kind of the box launch and then the game gets better and solid, and people can appreciate it. It is, it's vindication, on an emotional, personal level.
Right. I agree. I've seen that like with my core failures, like calling on cars. I get people like I'm not getting rid of my PS3 because my dad still played split screen. Like it's amazing. I do think though that does point to a bit of a problem because what you're describing is goes to the very heart, I think, of what a lot of these Sony PlayStation fans are feeling right now, which is they have this emotional connection to the brand. And sometimes that emotional connection has been manipulated in a good way and created by marketing, and sometimes it's organic, like what you're talking about with the games we make. And it seems that it's not being nurtured or respected. I'm not saying it's not, but that's the perception of it. Because when all these things are happening and Sony's just like, yeah, Days Gone, 5 million, fuck it, we're not making another one. It's gotta be, ruin the rooster, it's not worth it. And they're like, this was the greatest game of all time. It's like, I don't know, it almost seems like, yeah, you have to do business, but maybe there's value or just kindness in addressing your adoring public that loves you. You know, it just feels wrong to me. That's just my take. I'm on a soapbox.
Well, I think a healthy lens here is, you know, never say never to anything. It's just maybe not right now. You know what I mean? Like and I think the explosion of Marvel at this point, I mean, they're creating some amazing stuff on TV, obviously. Like, one could argue if you want to go see, and this was me for Endgame, it's like, I got to catch up on 50 different things. And I got to cram all those things in, and I want to watch them in order. And, you know, I think that more space in that case would be good, you know, to allow people to kind of organically get in everything.
Right.
So, I don't know, I mean, you never know what's coming out in the future, and, you know, nothing's permanent.
You hear that, folks? That's Jeff Ross confirming he's coming to his dead. Now, listen, which is great. It would be nice if Sony would do something like that, Jeffrey Ross. They should send you a goddamn check. That's all I'm saying. It would be nice. It would be nice. People are fans. They've heard that a little bit of that shit. Jeff says, Andreas, thank you, buddy. What is next for open world games?
Ooh, interesting. I think the distinction, 15 years ago, open world games used to be this thing. Like, they were a genre for themselves because they were so tough to do. A lot of places are doing it now. You know, they're easier than they seem. They're not trivial, obviously. But I think that open world, if it hasn't already, is moving away from the genre distinction to just a sub-element of the title. And to me, as a designer, creating open world is great because you create one thing and it's infinitely playable. Creating a very specific, curated, linear thing is a lot of work to be played one way. So I think that the power of the open world there and systems is systems that are right for the game, that kind of they're tailored to the mechanics and progression. I think that open world games just need to not go bigger artificially just because, right? They need to be rightly sized. So I think that's the number distinction that they can all do. But I think that they, at a certain point where open world games need to go is for the NPCs to be believable. You know, for this world that we're having an effect on. Yeah. Kind of make sure that you can almost have systemic narrative moments. You know, and that's kind of abstract stuff. But I think that when you finish an open world game, you still have a big playground to play in, but you have, you know, very little narrative, emotional context.
Well,
so I think
is it just resources? Like, I was playing Days Gone last night, and I went to the tower that Boozer is in, and he's still wounded, and he's lying in bed, and I walk over to him because I'm like, oh, I want to see what he's going to do. And he's just staring straight up at the sky, right? There's no response. I mean, is it just, yeah, we don't have time to build all that in? Is that kind of why? It's like,
yeah, I mean, it's, you have to plan your systems perfectly at the beginning for that, you know, and we definitely had a pretty chaotic start, so even if that was in our plans, it would have been a very tough thing to do because you're essentially coming down to hand scripting for a lot of that. Yeah. And but it could be systemic. You know, you just have to focus on the right things early to make sure that you know, the characters have schedules or they have arcs. You know, they have like kind of some sort of emotional arc that is for people who want to observe them. It's there, but it has to be something that is systemic and therefore a lot less specific. You know, but it basically delivers on keeping the player immersed. Because I'm sure when you look at Boozer's Threat in the Sky, you're taken out of the.
I was. That's right. And so, I mean, it didn't matter, but I was just like, oh, I wanted. We're because you put so much work into establishing us as buddies, and now he's wounded. Let me go see what happens if I go over there. And he's just like, you know. But I mean, that's a game right now. That's where we're at in 2021. It happens, you know. I don't know anyone that solves it yet. It will be solved though. Eddie dropped a super chat. He says, I remember Siphon Filter blew my mind as a kid. Being able to shoot out the street lights was next level on PS1. I will always remember the streets. There you go. I will always remember going to Sony Dog and Ponies and seeing you guys use the taser to set people on fire, and marketing just lost their shit. It was just like, this is the next great thing. Julio says, thank you, Julio. Where do you see gaming industry growing by a mid-generation update? Whatever the next iteration of PS5 and Xbox Series X, what's the future? Who wants to know, Jeff Ross?
Oh, shit. Do I look like Mark Cerny?
Yeah, there you go.
In terms of the hardware or the software, or
I think he just means games. Like, where do you see games going?
Well, you know, the thing that sucks, you know, is because I'm a designer first, is art always gets these generational leaps that are just astounding, and they're beautiful and everything. Appreciate it right away. For game design, the side of it is, I think that we are still using the same old tools, the same types of tools. Like, there hasn't been a paradigm shift there. So I think that you're going to see games look and feel a lot better and have great performance, but game design is going to have to make a leap in terms of making costumes and tropes. And these are all domain specific, so depending on the game you're going to make, the tropes going to bust. But I think that really delivering on true systems and paying off every moment where David Jaffe's looking at Boozer when he's asleep to kind of see what he's doing, those are the things that I think will keep players immersed and keep surprising and delighting them. And so that's a layer that's got to come on top of what is kind of a core that is probably not going to change. Because what we found with Days Gone was, one of the other complaints was, it's not that original. And I'm like, well, a couple reasons there, because we were trying to make the game that we wanted to make where we were disappointed with others. But at the same time, players and, marketing and execs, they want to feel comfortable, that you're not making something completely crazy and dampy. So it's really tough to evolve in the design space, but I think it's going to have to start upping its game. Just the way that art has these big leaps, design's going to need some. But not to the point where they become obnoxious and intrusive.
What was the one thing on other games that did open world that you guys were like, oh, we want to do it right? Like, when you're saying we were making an open world game because we wanted to fix the things that other games did that bugged us. Was there like one specific thing that really stuck in your craw that was like, I can't handle that, I got to fix that?
Yeah, I think that the biggest one was the idea that the power, that the player was the alpha predator and the apex predator in this space, and that everything in games typically, this isn't just open world necessarily, but games typically, their progressions are on a power curve where the player starts powerful and gets more powerful. And you look at the box art for a game, like, yeah, right, there's a fantasy that develops in my mind. And then you play the game and it doesn't quite live up to that. And so I'll use DayZ. It's not the best example, but DayZ is a game where you hear people talking about it. That sounds rad, but you're surviving, it's hand to mouth, you're fighting other people. Well, it was a rough experience, but it was very immersive for the players who did it. And the stories they had about getting kidnapped and abducted, I'm like, that sounds awesome, sign me up. But in order to do it, you'd have to play for like 70 hours. You'd have to kind of go out of your way to do it. And I'm like, they're onto something, but it's multiplayer and they can't control it. But I'm like, we can embrace our ambient events, like the thing that kind of drives the open world play should be about capturing the essence of humans being evil, humans being shitty to each other in the apocalypse, as they probably would. And that kind of led to the ambush events, which I'm really proud of for Days Gone, because it was a fight. It was a fight where the designers hated it. A lot of people just didn't understand that when you make a player lose control and power, that's always been perceived as a negative thing. And my whole take was, in order to deliver on that core fantasy, players have to feel they can never be comfortable. And so we basically created this world that comes for you in this free ecosystem where if you stand still too long, somebody's going to smell you out and they're going to hunt you down. And so it's not necessarily a fix for other games, so much as an inspiration of elements from other games that needed to coalesce with a singular vision.
That's cool. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, I like I said, I don't know if you heard, but I'm super immersed in Days Gone. Being in that world feels, I think there is an ambient aspect to just seeing the freakers. I'm riding my bike and they're just out there doing their thing like wild animals, but they're eating bodies and shit. It's very creepy but beautiful, which I love. I love that about that game. RPG, thank you for the super chat. Okay, here's what I think we'll do. I mean, look, I have a lot of energy. I can keep going. I don't want to take. We've been going for over 2 hours. I got a bunch of calls. I got a bunch of super chats. We can either do speed round or I can wrap it up and maybe get back, because we're gonna. Hopefully, you had a good enough time. We can bring you back and actually talk game design and game philosophy and get off the article. But you lead the thing. What do you want to do? Do you want to go for another 20 minutes or are we done?
Yeah, no, let's go for another 20 minutes. I am losing my voice, so I think that'll be good.
Hey, Siri, set a timer for 20 minutes. Here she goes. I love Siri. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's bang through them. And thank you guys. I don't want to rush you. And if you want to talk to Jeff a little bit more in detail, hopefully we can get him to come back when we have that conversation. so maybe hang up and call back, but I'm going to play through these as fast as possible. Here we go. Basement Radio says it's developing for weaker hardware and limit game size.
No, I think that's an excuse.
Okay. Jeff, do you feel, this is Eddie, thank you, sir, do you feel open world is in a stale place where it's just a map of weird icons and links for quests, travel from point to point?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying you fix it by the stuff you're talking about, like in terms of more procedural scenarios that get written almost in real time based on player action?
It will to an extent, but I think that you fix that problem by being bold and being confident enough to ignore people that are really comfortable playing open world games where you just open a map and you look at the shiny and they'll tell you what to do. I think a game should do this anyway. They should just have a tighter internal consistency to where the player learns where to go and what to look for what he's looking to do, rather than us kind of like having all these neon signs.
So using the level geometry to figure it out versus going...
Just introducing the rules to the player of the system so that the players can have a question in their mind, like, I bet if I did this, it would pay off. And then making sure that it does pay off. But I think that players are uncomfortable with that is more so than we think. And if you want to be mainstream, you do have to kind of acknowledge players who are very comfortable with some of these things like mini-maps, with maps with icons on them. But within the games that are, and we did this with our survival mode, was we needed all this interface, the HUD, in order to kind of guide players. But there are certain players, a small percentage, that don't want that. And so we gave them the opportunity in survival mode to reduce as much of that as possible and kind of limit some other features. But I think you have to do something innovative like that as a kind of a sidecar to your main game.
Is that because you're looking out for the mainstream audience, or are you getting that pressure from marketing or sales or Scott Rohde, or like where does that come from? Or is that a personal...
You're from every single person that plays it and says, I don't know what to do.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And that's where these things you really kind of... You need
so you know the solve, you just haven't integrated the solve. So of course they're going to say that because the solve's not there yet. But that's where you want it to go.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. That's great. That's great. Gun Crazy, thank you, sir. I got two questions. We'll make them quick. One is, could Ben's studio break off from Sony to become independent, and Microsoft would buy you outright? I guess, sure. I mean, the guys at Bend and the ladies at Bend could get together and start a company, and then Microsoft could buy them, right?
Yeah, but they're really happy with where they're at now with Sony. So it's
it's possible legally, but probably not.
Legally speaking, yeah.
Could Sony look at the sales of the PC port of Days Gone, which is coming out when? When is that coming out?
Not long. I'm not sure exactly when. It's soonish.
What if they look at that? Would they reconsider a Days Gone sequel? I think if you read between the lines, Jeff is basically saying he's not saying there's no Days Gone sequel. He's saying don't take the article at face value, correct?
Well, I'm just saying I'm not confirming or denying anything.
Okay, there you go.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, but let's not be morons going crazy. If Days Gone on PC, blows up like a motherfucker, and Days Gone on PS Plus game collection blows up, of course Sony's not stupid. Sony is showing, and Jeff is saying that they're going to go where the money is because the costs are such. So I'm sure that's pretty obvious. Will we see Days Gone 2 on PS5? Thank you for the super chat. I don't think you can answer that.